Shazam. All right. Hey, this is Evan, and this is Professor Prism.
Hey, how's it going?
So, and this is his fancy schmancy game. So we'll do a little bit of talking, and we'll show you the game here as well. So why don't you give us the backstory on that, starting out?
All right, well, this is Pinky Elefante. Pinky Elefante is from a land of magic and make believe known as Pinkland, which is a world that exists inside of this universe I call the Colorverse. Pinky, I crowdfunded last spring with this kind of experimental sort of real time performance game piece on Kickstarter, and then developed it and released it last summer to iOS and Android and whatnot.
Yeah, and didn't you say you got that onto Wii or the Wii U?
No, but they did contact me. I am now a Nintendo developer, and I am bringing Pinky and the Colorverse to a future Nintendo product.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
An as yet unnamed mysterious product, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it was kind of I've recorded what I could of it. It was like my ultimate, childhood game geek fantasy coming true. Like I saw on the caller ID, it said Nintendo of North America calling. I was like, what the fuck, man? I don't even know we anymore.
Oh
Yeah,
man, that's really cool. That's got to be like one of the coolest phone calls you ever get.
it was amazing, and the guy was really nice. I should have written down his name because he was really supportive and stuff, and it would have been cool to like, continue to interface with him as like kind of my first person at Nintendo. But yeah, now I'm a developer and I get access to all this cool stuff, and but it's kind of neat because I tried to approach Nintendo actually at what was it, E3 like 10 years ago, and they wanted nothing to do with me.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
they
trying to
were
get a kit, independently and for my
yeah
school and whatnot. And but now they have this great like independent developers program, so that's what I'm a part of.
yeah they've really upped their game on that. In the I'd say in the past couple years. They there was a time when they were really unfriendly to the indies and the Let's Play community and all that.
No, I mean I got pretty high up in the totem pole to request it for I was at a pretty prestigious school. I was at the University of Southern California
Yeah.
in the cinema school, and I was like, hey, we want to make a Nintendo game, and they're like, nah, not gonna happen. We're not gonna give you proprietary knowledge.
Oh
So,
well.
but hey, 10 years later, they called me and let me in, so that's cool.
Yeah.
At least I'm
Well.
still.
Yeah. And hey, they're still a solvent company. So hey.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, I mean, although like I would love to have ridiculous sales on a Nintendo release, it'll just be great to kind of see something I put my love, blood, sweat, and tears into, like with a Nintendo logo on it, and give me tingles and all that jazz.
Yeah. Well, there's something really magical about that. If you can say, yeah, I've got a game on a Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. What the heck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
still
just really
remember.
really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember as a kid, someone telling me that people got paid to make games. Just
Or the ever mysterious the ones that even got paid to play them. That's like what? How,
yeah,
how, how can a person be paid to play video games? We've since learned that they make horrible wages, but still, you get paid to play video games. It's pretty awesome.
kept in a dungeon and fed pizza, force fed pizza for for weeks on end.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you'll probably be eating Totino's.
Yeah, worst job ever, really.
It's yeah, it's slave labor.
Yeah, yeah, I had to do it for like one of my gigs when I mean, years ago when I first started working in mobile at this place called Jam Dad. I had to like play a golf game over and
Oh,
over. This was like when it was all this crappy little old JavaScript like stamp size thing, and all day long, like shoulder to shoulder, these kids kind of clicking on stuff. Ugh, wow.
oh man, that's just gonna wear you right out.
Well, it was good experience, but I wouldn't recommend it for the long run.
No, no, for sure. Excuse me. So, why don't we bust into a little bit of the Pinky Elefante to show people what it's about?
All right. So let's see. Yeah, I guess if I might preempt to some extent, the whole idea behind Pinky Elefante is, I've been in the game industry for a while, and kind of got really disgusted, frankly, with some of the talk of addiction and really creating these compulsion loops that keep players hooked in games so they
Oh, I
don't.
know exactly what you're talking about.
And that seems to be like where the whole industry has gone, where they just want to keep players locked in these kind of pay-for-play systems that really, for to me, don't engender good experiences. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could create something small and kind of bite-sized that at the end of it kind of helps the real world in some way, has some kind of loop to kind of bring people out of it and say, hey, look, we were, escaping in this fantasy over here, but it had some, positive effects,
Yeah.
over here, however small, and we can do this. We don't have to, escapism unto itself isn't a problem, as long as we like return the fruits of that, back to the real world and produce some good. So anyway, so the idea is, so far I've only fostered one of these orphan elephants, but with monies from the sale of Pinky, sometimes I give 100%. Lately, I've just been saying a portion, but when I launched, I was doing 100% to foster orphan African elephants at this place called the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Nairobi. So we fostered our first orphan elephant in Doto about a month ago. Actually, I think it was on 420 or around there. And
That's cool.
yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. And so it's just fun to, it's small, but I've made this thing and it's had a little bit of impact. And, I now get these great notes about this orphan elephant we help. So here we go. So this I consider like the first episode. I guess I shouldn't talk about it too much because, part of it is discovery.
Yeah.
But I'll sit here and play through it. Let's see if this if this build works.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Pause
yeah.
in my case.
Well, it just yeah. Well.
I'll shrink myself down a little bit so folks can see the screen a little better.
See, it's not going to work on here. Poop. I've got a touch screen, but yeah. Let's see. Can I click and drag him? Yeah. No, this build's not going to work. Yeah, it was so good. I'm sorry. Let's see if I can find another one on here that will work.
Don't look behind the curtain, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Pay no attention. Let's go back here. These are all intended to be for mobile. So, let's see. I'm sure one of these is.
So while you're searching this up here,
Uh-huh.
what I'll do is put something on this Gross Beats album.
I don't know. This is not a good idea. I should have tested it first. Sorry.
Oops.
Classic example, boys and girls. Always test your tech beforehand. Build.
What is it they say? Measure twice, cut once.
It's got some other sound in it.
Oh, that's right.
It's a totally different build. Yeah. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this going on. I should have planned for it first. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, there we go. This one will work.
Sweet.
If it will launch. Okay. So, I think this one should work. Not the final build, but I'll at least be able to get you some gameplay. Pay no attention. Oh, this doesn't have the skip buttons in it yet. Poor Pinky. Oh, yeah, this is a weird build. But here, you can get the general idea.
Yeah.
When it's not running too well. Oh. Guess I should use my So, oh man, it's really troops. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, there you go. So you can retry a few times if you want. So these are called zones. I wish I had a better build here for you. But anyway, you get the general idea. So let's see if I can go back and I'll show you like a more advanced level. It'll probably run even worse because of this build. I don't think it's optimized. But, at least get a general idea how it progresses.
Yeah.
So the idea is, these creatures, these drones, from another world, have shown and stolen all the pink from Pinkland, and inadvertently took Pinky too, and he's left as the sole rescuer of his world to gather all the pink and, prevent life from turning into a doom lacking contrast.
Ah, yeah. Can't have a gray world.
No. No pink, no joy. So essentially took the essence away, and that's the basics of it.
Oh, okay. Kind of got the premise there. So the style of gameplay, what you're trying to knock all the health bars away from said drone baddie?
No, actually, at this point, there is no offensive. It's a purely defensive game. There are bonuses that kind of progress over the course of gameplay, at least within the current episode. And those bonuses that you can receive as Pinky help you to kind of thwart the drones, but they're not offensive. They tend to slow them down, or freeze them, or make them make you invincible.
Okay.
So,
I gotcha.
At this point is a pretty passive character drawn into this inadvertently, and he just doesn't know how to fight back.
Understandable. Yeah. Who's going to know how to do something like that in the very beginning of a conflict?
Yeah, exactly. So
this is no veteran elephant we're dealing with here.
No, and he's got invaders from another dimension that have shown up in his world and taken him to outer pink, and he's not really sure what's going on up there.
Oh, okay. So you're just trying to I guess keep away from them and gather as much of the pink dots there that I was seeing as possible in what you're given time.
Yep, that's the idea.
Oh, okay.
And actually, at this point, there is no time constraints. I used to have time constraints on it, but I've since removed them. So it's a really dynamic system, and depending on how you play it, some of the levels will go, or forgive me, zones, I call them, will go much more quickly, and some more slow. It's all based on what I call a goal for how much pink you need to gather in that zone.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So it's
so you can fail, but there's not a time there's not a lose state with a time condition.
Okay. I think I get what you're going with that. So it's kind of a cumulative gameplay experience then.
Yeah, people have tried to ask me to define the gameplay, and I guess I feel like it's relatively novel. I know I could get more deep with it. I developed this on my own. I'm not a programmer by trade, but I've learned to do what I can, and yeah, I mean it's I like to think it's kind of a new sort of arcade action that kind of draws in some of the retro stuff, i.e. Pac-Man and whatnot, and adds something a little more modern and Cartoon Network to it.
Yeah, I know. I can get that. Honestly, I think what would be really cool is if you could just maybe throw together a cabinet as a like a one-off and put one of those like a giant trackball thing. Like they had
right in the middle, totally, yeah.
Because that would be such a cool control method for that style of game.
See, that's so smart. I'm glad you said that, because when I've envisioned it in the past, I always thought of like a joystick or a D-pad, but just the roller ball would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that'd be great, man. And you could just get to just use a trackball.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's what's actually fun about this. Given the technology I use, it's really easy. This build kind of stinks. I'm sorry. The later builds are much more optimized. The idea is I can get it to run on basically anything, and it I've got to modify my optimization for that particular platform, but it's essentially the same game, and it works really well. So yeah, that'd be awesome. Uh-oh. More popular than me.
Oh no.
I'm gonna close this thing. Leave it. Wow, they're coming in from all places. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Well, you kind of got a.
You're getting killed. Death to you. Okay.
That was the remix.
Yeah, exactly. So
That was our live session, folks. Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh no, I guess I don't need to do that. I was gonna sit there and see if I can get another build to work.
Yeah, no worries. I've got the YouTube videos queued up here, so.
Oh, cool.
From the Colorverse page. So you know what? Actually, I'll go ahead and get that queued up.
Cool.
Real quickly here.
Yeah, these are kind of initially made for the, I guess, old now Instagram 15-second format.
All right. Well, let me go here and start these playing.
Hi, I'm Steven Aaron Deinhardt IV, founder and chief wizard here at Narrow. I've been working in entertainment and interactive media for decades, and I've been lucky enough to work with some of the best in the industry. But today, I'm here to introduce you to Pinky, whose world is rocked when drones from another dimension show up to steal all the pink from Pinkland and make life a certain doom lacking contrast. Hi, I'm Steven Aaron Deinhardt IV, founder and chief wizard here at Narrow. I've been working in entertainment and interactive media for decades, and I've been lucky enough to work with some of the best in the industry. But today, I'm here to introduce you to Pinky, whose world is rocked when drones from another dimension show up to steal all the pink from Pinkland and make life a certain doom lacking contrast. But the good news is, you can drive it. You can help save Pinky, and indeed possibly the entire Colorverse. In 2012, I began writing and illustrating Pinky, and created the first iteration of the game, currently available on the Google Play.
So yeah, there is the Kickstarter pitch video.
Yeah, that was the first video. I released like, gosh, how many were there? I think about 12 over the course of the campaign, and actually ended up making a film out of it, feature film, and it incorporates not only my updates, but some of the other stuff I was doing on other social media platforms. And even kind of my own kind of life log material, stuff that I've recorded for my own life over the past 10 years or so.
Oh, cool.
So it was a blend of fiction and reality.
Let's see if we can't get this back centered again. So we can have the cool footage of everything and everybody on screen at the same time, too. All right, so what else have you worked on? Tell us about some other cool stuff you've been involved with.
Well, I was Just reminiscing, most recently, yesterday, I guess, about my path through games. Um, so, started as a kid kind of playing D&D and arguing about the NES and the Sega Genesis. Going to arcades with my friends and kind of hiding under tables while, older folks would play war games just so I could hear the stories they told.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of grew up and started working in interactive media, doing a lot of digital design and working in the web. And a client we had needed some games for this world they had created for kids called Paw Island. It's full of cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And so we, made some games with, my team and I made some games, and that was cool. It was kind of my first taste of being a professional game designer. And I don't know, fast forward after that, probably about 5 years or so, and somehow I ended up going to graduate school at USC in the cinema school, and used that as a way to kind of crash this VIP room at E3, and managed to give these business cards I had printed up that morning to someone who called me a couple months later and invited me to come work at Warner Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was super cool. And, totally kind of outside the box, so to speak. Like, literally, I just... anyway, that's another story. But anyway, they called, and I went out there, bought a $100 polyester suit.
Nice.
From the fashion district, and went over there. And before I knew it, I was working on things like The Matrix, Scooby-Doo, Constantine. Was really my first... I mean, they didn't give me a lot of credits on the other stuff because I was just kind of helping producers, but they did give me a credit on the Constantine game, which I was doing some production QA for.
Oh, cool.
And, so it was a great start. So that was really my first AAA game there in 2005, I believe.
Oh, right on. That was actually oh wait, no, I haven't played that one. I have played the Matrix game. It's a lot better than people gave it credit for.
Yeah, well, that was kind of neat. There were a couple of them. So the one I ended up helping on was actually the Matrix MMO.
Oh, really?
Which I should probably talk about a little bit more. It was an interesting experience.
The concept for that was really good, but I don't think the execution ever really came through.
That's part of the problem in production these days. In terms of, what Warner Brothers was trying to do was truly innovative. I mean, they had the Wachowskis up there, and they were kind of not treating games as this like auxiliary product to their core line.
Yeah, it's integrating it. There's what
kind
of what they were wanting to do.
There's this B storyline that's happening in this Matrix game, and then if you want to find out about this part of the film, there's this other game over here. So they're really working together with the core creators of that property to create this kind of this universe with it.
Kind of like what they're trying to do now with DC and Marvel with the television shows that tie in with the movies and the expanded universe, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. So, at times in my life, I call that transmedia, and it was something I kind of focused on in schools. But yeah, I mean, it's still a big question, and a lot of companies have tried to do it. Certainly something I've tried to do with Pinky. It's all like kind of low budget and indie, so I can't do so much, but I do my best. But to create an experience that crosses platforms, that by your knowledge or lack of knowledge of say one element in that platform, you can go and enjoy a piece of that experience, and suddenly this world will open to you, and there's all these other elements there. And rather than doing it simply trying to sell product through, which is what Disney has done for years, and what Lucas did with Star Wars, as much as people try to call it transmedia. Yeah, there's definitely a push now to really try to integrate these things. And actually, I think the most successful one most recently that I've witnessed is Lego, particularly what they're doing with a property called the Mixels. They've done
not familiar.
A really cool job with it. Yeah, it skews pretty young, but I've got a small boy I take care of most of the time, my son, and
right, of course.
I end up watching a lot of Cartoon Network, and actually they first introduced, I guess we're digressing a little bit here. but they first introduced it as an intro to the Lego Movie, and then we're kind of like, hey, there's this new world, made of these toys. Go check them out. So then we bought the Legos, and then there was this Cartoon Network special that was coming out. So they were kind of constantly feeding on the release of each other's product to try to make the world more rich. And it was
Yeah.
small, but they did a really good job. And the way I know that is because how my son was engaging with it, and how the world seemed to be seamless for him across the platforms he was dealing with.
Well, that's cool. I can understand how they'd want to do that, and that's going to be a really good way to kind of draw somebody into your brand to get all corporate-y with it.
Yeah, well, and that's when it gets, that's when I think there's like a balance to be had there because, we need to make money,
Yeah.
this is product and, the only way we kind of keep making it is by making money. But, yeah, I mean, the idea is not only how can you use it to create, exciting product, but hopefully how do you create something that feels like it's part of your world and kind of furthers the immersion that someone might have within it.
Yeah, no. That's actually that should be the aim that a person goes for, but the state of the industry these days is at times questionable.
Well, yeah, I mean, we even just said it a second ago. I mean, the makers of the Matrix tried to do it, given it was a while ago, but they tried to do it and clearly had a challenge. But that was also a huge budget product, across various studios. So the logistics of that alone is challenging, which is why I like to think that maybe doing it on a smaller scale, you might be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, and as I had mentioned in the chat earlier, with the tools that exist now, a person can do a lot more than ever was really possible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, really. Even I mean, I don't like I don't want to toot my horn too much, and Pinky is simple, decidedly simple. Something I learned a long time ago in design is it's really easy to make stuff complex. It's really hard to make stuff simple and easy to understand. And although I intentionally have it sort of abstracted, try to keep it simple. But when I show it to people, they assume that I've outsourced the whole thing or that I had a big team on it.
Well,
that's hard.
that's kind of a compliment, really.
It's a huge compliment, but it's because of what you said. I do have a lot of skills, but it's only because we exist in this time where we have all these tools available to us that like someone can do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then we can go direct to market with it, which is insane. I don't have to wait for a former publisher. That's cool. Nintendo's on board now, but I didn't have to wait for them, and I released product, to a worldwide market, on my own.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at the Greenlight system on Steam now. With that too, you can get any game out to a PC market.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's got a $100 entry fee, and then basically you put it out to the market, let them see if they want it. If they do, they'll put it out there for you.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I mean, sometimes I'm not too hip on the Steam scene, but when I do look at it, and like every now and then I catch these stories, I'm amazed at the sales that come through. They have a really loyal fan base to that platform that indies tend to do really well with.
Indeed. Well, the thing about it is they've got one of the least intrusive DRM systems, and it's integrated really well with their UI. So it's like you get one decent single package that kind of covers all your needs, as opposed to the old distribution platforms. You have to actually go out, buy the disc, get the thing, and then maybe now download the patch for it that's going to be out on day 1 or 2.
It's still a little messy, as I recall, but yeah, it is pretty cool that like you don't have to worry about those old PC discs and saving your serial number and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But you still have to go and patch the whole thing again.
Yeah. I would not mind if we could get back into releasing working products.
Yeah, my God. Last time I bought, my buddies made this Dawn of War game. I've worked on some Dawn of War games. It was just horrible. I was, I probably shouldn't say this in an interview, but, fun game, but it took like 8 hours of downloads and updates after you installed it to get to a place where you could play it. And it's just like, actually, I actually have lost all interest in playing this game.
What was it? There was one that just came out. The most recent Dark Souls, I think, had like a 7 gig download or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, that reminds me. There was a story I heard recently. It might have been Warner. I don't know, but they released they had a property that they had to act on before the copyright expired,
Right.
and they basically sent out the disc with just the demo on it, and then the day one download was actually the whole game.
Wow, that's bizarre. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah,
Sounds kinda actually.
I'll have to send you a link to that one. It was it's kind of shady. Well, actually, it's kind of really shady.
No, it's super shady, but kind of shady smart.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's that's how you do it. I mean, when you got to get your product shipped, well, here's the discs. There you go. It'll work when they go to, well, after it's downloaded the update.
Yeah, yeah. It's part of the problem of the beta world, like you said. So yeah, we're releasing working product. You know, I don't know. I could blame all kinds of factors for that. Most of which is just bad production, poor production models. There's so much of that in the industry. It just wastes time and energy on massive scales that
Oh yeah.
those lives and money.
Well, a really good example of that is I don't know if you're familiar, but APB and Reloaded Studios, they were the team behind Crackdown
Okay.
on the original Xbox, maybe at least the 360. But they were making something akin to what GTA Online is now. So they had a big team, and then they got good funding from the top. Like, they didn't do any crowdsourcing or anything. They did theirs the old-fashioned way, and they ended up getting a lot of money. They built themselves up to near AAA studio size, and they got way too big for their britches, way too quick. Took on too many problems, and basically just exploded.
Yeah. No, I mean, that the sad truth of it is that most, particularly AAA studios, just hope to get acquired before they implode or explode, be it as it may.
Yeah,
So,
kind of sad that. Or
yeah,
like,
there's just a lot of really poor management processes and a lot of, I think, kind of disregard for the way things were made before. You get these kids that assume that, like, no one's ever made a game before, and they go to reinvent the wheel, and it's just 10 years later
like, yeah, we got a really good wheel here. We've been working on this thing for a while. It doesn't even squeak anymore,
right.
But no, that'd be a little too easy.
Yeah, and it is a new medium, so there's always kind of going to be interesting questions that arise. But I think there's just a lot of poor management out there.
Indeed, there is. I mean, well, it's more than clear when you look at the way that some things are handled. Like the way Firefall went. That ended up in quite the fiasco, from my understanding.
I'm so out of the loop, dude. I remember as a kid when I'd go into like industry execs offices, which I was fortunate enough to be around, and I'd say, "Oh, have you played Fable 2 or whatever it was?"
Right.
And they said, "Oh, well, that's in the stack over there. Yeah, I'll get to it never." The stuff turns into work, and there's just so much content created.
That's true. That's true.
It's really kind of hard to keep up with all of it, especially if you're actually also making your own product. Which, strangely enough, I always play the hell out of games I'm making. I feel like it's my responsibility.
Well, it should be. I mean, that's
a lot of people don't.
That's responsible on your part. Kudos to you. That's
I
being a responsible dev.
Thanks. Yeah, it's you want to make sure it's a good experience and it's something you can get behind, and I don't know. I find it really strange. Some of the like really great products I've worked on, and you can't get the team to play it. It's like
that's a shame. Yeah, no, I mean, if your team isn't playing your game, what do you say? Where's the love?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a clear sign actually of the how burnt out they have become over the course of doing this, that they just don't even care to play it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's not who you want. That's not the kind of people you want making something that,
Well,
Call it art,
I
if you
wouldn't blame
will.
it necessarily on the people, because it's a bad work environment that produces those kinds of those feelings from people. It's like, working at a restaurant and somebody treats you like a butthead or whatever,
Right.
and pardon my French, but
No, my channel's
then
you,
you're
you
not
can
going to.
go much more R than that if you feel so
Oh, okay.
inclined.
All right. Well, I appreciate that for future reference.
Yeah, sure.
But you won't necessarily feel the same about the hamburger anymore after Guido's picked it off the floor for you or something.
Right. Or you've been called every single name in the book just because you brought something that wasn't made right. That what are you doing? You're going from the kitchen to the front. You got nothing to do with this.
And although a lot of people have tried to change it, and then bring a bunch of females in and act like the culture is different, like, oh look, we're wearing pink shirts now. Look at all these 20-something women we've hired to staff our entry-level positions, and they act like it's all kind of gender balanced now. But it's really hardcore boy culture I was never very comfortable with, and I think that's maybe where a lot of the issues kind of stem from. Other professional design and production environments I worked in are a lot more balanced, and they don't have the same kind of boy culture issues that are rampant in game development.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a matter of just making sure you got the right talent. There haven't been, well, no, I can't say there haven't been a lot of talented women in game development. I mean, you look at someone like Amy Hennig with Legacy of Kain, or Roberta from Sierra.
I don't know. I think of Sierra, and I think of my friend Christy Marks or Brenda Romero. My old fling, Kelly Santiago's done pretty well for herself. I don't know. Yeah, there's only a handful of them, and you can start getting deeper with it about perhaps there's something about sensibilities that makes this less appealing to one sex or opposed to the other, but I'm not sure how much of that there necessarily is, because I've met a lot of women that are way more hardcore than I am, that's for sure, and they own me. It's kind of funny, actually. I'll meet some attractive smart woman who realizes I make games, and she's like, oh yeah, finally someone to go out and tear up a zone with and whatever.
Yeah, right on.
And I'm actually really terrible at playing games.
Go figure, right?
I'm like, hey guys, I just make them. I don't have to play them.
Yeah. I just work on
cars. But I try to play them, so.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're putting in the effort at least. Right. Which unfortunately can't be said for a lot of developers, which is genuinely kind of sad.
Well, and one of my favorite examples of that was when I was working on the Company Heroes franchise, which I still probably remain most proud of my work. And I'd go out and I'd play in these live ranked matches, and people would be dogging me about how bad I was. And I was like, I made this game.
What are you gonna do? But hey, you're making your fan base feel great. It's like, oh man, I'm stomping on the dev. I'm awesome.
No, most of them don't believe me. Every now and then they will.
Wow.
Most like, shut up.
Oh well. Still, you're playing the game though. That's you're putting in the hours, the work, as they say.
And that's why it's. Although I had my son do a lot of the play testing with Pinky. I played that game so much. I feel pretty solid about how it works. So, and that's the way you got to be. If you're gonna build a car, you want to make sure it drives, right? You're not gonna let anyone else drive it until you're sure it frickin' drives, right?
Right. Yeah. No, QA is a really, really important thing, and it's
vital.
It's a shame that it's overlooked, but now we've got this early access being kind of a thing now, not just on Steam, but kind of on other platforms like Origin with EA, and I don't know if GOG's doing it yet with their GOG Universe or whatever it's called.
I only really ever experienced it with like Battle.net and I don't know, I guess a couple other spots, but yeah, it is cool, and that makes a whole lot of sense. They talk about other methods of doing it, like do a soft release, don't announce too much, and try to gather a bunch of data about usage so that you can go and tune the next build that you release to meet those needs and those
Or
expectations.
yeah, like what they did with the Doom multiplayer beta that they released a couple weeks before the main game, so that they could get their servers optimized for when it actually hit,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is brilliant. I mean, look at what happened here when Overwatch hit just the other day. Everything crashed and just to the like apocalyptic, burn to the ground kind of horrible stuff. But they got it back up. But it was real bad there for a little while. But then you look at Doom, there wasn't really any of that. Mind you, a lot of games are hosted because it's that kind of thing. But still, even the server-based games, they did really well.
Hmm.
So you gotta
Collective intelligence, right?
yeah be mindful in your rollouts.
Yeah, well, and it's cool. Produces some loyalty. You get people, get people in early. So I try to do it as an indie. It's a little more challenging, but if you can
Yeah,
get people on early to test stuff and give you feedback. You're sure you're getting close to the mark.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I think the early access system ought to be used for. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of devs have been kind of abusive of it, and I mean, like with Double Fine and Space Base 9 or Space Base DF9 or whatever it was. I mean, their game was in mid beta stages, honestly, and they're just like, nah, well, here you go, just send it out. Put it at 1.0, and the game was genuinely unfinished, and release it as a finished product. That's uncalled for. That's just not the way to treat your customer base, for one, and for
No, I
two,
mean,
that's a terrible way to do your development.
yeah, well, I mean, sadly, a lot of times when I'm brought into products, it tends to be development that's been going on for years, and I'm usually brought in the last 18 months to kind of pull it together.
Oh man,
So
my condolences.
so they
That's
can get it out. And you got all these people that haven't played what they've built, and they're not even
oh,
sure what it is, but somehow they're really attached to it. It's just a mess, man.
oh
So
man,
not
that's
not not the way to build stuff, and not the way to treat people. So yeah, you
no,
get a team that you flushed $12 million on, and they've spent 18 months, 3 years of their lives. I guess these days it's more like 100 mil,
right,
and naturally those you're not going to be able to keep you know exploiting those people really
no,
stuff
no,
out of them. So they're going to say, hey, you know what, hey, just take it, whatever you want, and as long as you guys call it done and we can get our bonus check and stop working crunch hours, that sounds pretty good.
yeah, and the crunch time in game dev is. I've heard some real horror stories.
Yeah, some places have been really bad. I've never really experienced anything too bad, but a lot of sort of on the line illegal practices where they say, well, it's not mandatory overtime because technically we can't make you work overtime. But everyone else is coming in this weekend and there's going to be free pizza. And you know what? We know that the really important, good team members that care about this business are going to be here knocking it out.
Uh,
You know,
yeah, I'm gonna need you to come in
classic
on
man.
Saturday.
What's that?
I'm gonna need you to come in on Saturday.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're all going to be hanging out here late night, so we
Mm,
need you to be here hanging out late night, pretending you're being super productive.
yeah, yeah. And hey, while you're pretending, why don't you go ahead and knock some of the work out too?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a strange blend of corporate environment and studio, which is why on a business standpoint, I'd really like to see us move more towards like a film model, where we say to people, hey, we're just going to hire you temporarily, right? This
Yeah.
is 18 months worth of work, and afterwards we're going to part our ways, and I'm going to pay you really well for that time, but I have zero responsibility for you, as opposed to now where they play this whole, oh yes, come join our family, bring your bring your children and your dog,
Yeah.
and relocate here, and we're going to lay you off within 12 to 36 months.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's kind of a given anymore. I mean, you go in being promised that you're going into like a studio, like you're going into the next rock star or something. We're going to be a bedrock, cornerstone of the industry, not going anywhere. But unless it genuinely is like an EA, a Take Two, a rock star, you got no guarantees. You got no guarantees past the game you're working on. You don't even have a guarantee to the end of the game you're working on.
No, and then actually with the way the industry structure, you don't even have a guarantee you're going to be credited for the work that you're producing on it. I've written big games with big names that, as a result of politics, they've given me a special thanks uh, for stuff that in other industries I'd be getting paychecks for to this day.
Oh man, that's a shame.
Yeah,
The whole of the game dev industry is it's real screwy from the top to the bottom, and there's some real nasty folk that are kind of making the whole thing even worse on the outside too.
well, there's always exceptions, and I think there's a lot of innovation going on right now,
Oh yeah, yeah. I won't disagree. Like I say, there's some amazing tools.
and
You
then
look at what's being done with Unity right now.
Unity's amazing, man.
It is. It
And
is. I mean, it's actually
then-
kind of like how Sam Colt made everybody equal. Unity's kind of putting it out there so that anyone can be a game dev.
Yeah, well, and that was, I mean, as a game dev, it was part of the problem for a while. Everyone has all these proprietary systems. You have to
Yeah.
relearn it like everywhere you go. And from a development standpoint, it's like, you know, wait, we have to build our own engine first? Like, is this game really that novel that we need our own engine? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So,
I
you know,
remember when that was the
okay.
only way things were. Even
What's that?
I remember back in the day that was the only way you could do it, and then
Well,
then
like
that
you
kind
said
of trickled
earlier,
down. Yeah.
like you said earlier, Game Maker.
Hmm.
There's like really low barriers for entry if you just want to start making a game, and there's no
Yeah.
reason that you can't be up to speed really quickly. So, Game Maker is actually, uh, you know, the tool I get in terms of digital prototyping. I always teach students to start with paper prototyping because I'm a firm believer that you can do a lot more quickly, rapidly, and actually produce a lot more great play with paper before you move to digital. And but there's these digital tools that are so the barrier to entry is so low on them.
Yeah.
Uh, you could build a platformer in a matter of an hour or two.
You can. I mean, you don't require a lot of skill, and they're not expensive. I mean, you can get the basic tools for really cheap, and they run on a reasonable machine. You don't have to have a multi-thousand-dollar, high power workstation to get involved in this sort of thing.
No, it's insane. I mean, everything I've done for Pinky, from making the new version of the game, from the music, shooting a feature film, all the graphics, $700 HP laptop.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry is really low. It wasn't top of the line, but best machine I've ever had,
Uh-huh.
and you know, just can do a lot of work.
That's pretty impressive. And we're kind of getting back into that theme of optimization again, finally, in game development, which it's been sorely lacking for some while. I mean, these day one patches, but yeah, yeah.
Now, there's a lot of really bad optimization. I think it comes from our tech fetish, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and consistently saying, "Oh, we want this to run on the latest, NVIDIA or whatever." And so there's this push to always kind of have stuff super high end. But the fact is, a lot of people can't even view that. I mean, how many people do now have a 1080p screen or 4K?
Yeah,
Or a 3D TV. You
yeah.
know, so yeah, I mean, I think optimization is, especially as you kind of get all of these platforms out there, it's really important. In the early days of the internet, I know that's kind of was my bread and butter. How do I optimize this to get down that little pipeline so that
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a rich experience on the other side?
Well, yeah, yeah. There's something to be said for having a bottleneck that you've got to work with. It forces your hand. Well, a great example is some of the demo scenes, like in Europe, where they've it's like you've got say 700K, make the most impressive demo you can make, and there's some amazing things that go in there. These guys will write custom compression algorithms and be able to fit what looks like it ought to be at least a gig of data in less than a meg.
Yeah, Pinky's about 1.3.
Really, right on.
I mean, the native packaging that has to go around it so that it lives on a platform
Yeah.
ends up making it larger. But yeah, 1.3 megabytes.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I got really good at it. I started doing mobile development a long time ago, and I mean, over 10 years ago. And so yeah, I learned to optimize stuff really well, and you know, I think I'm from an age where maybe I kind of do it too much for the bandwidth that we have these days. But you know, um, there's a reason that Google is doing the Google Fiber thing, and everybody's pushing to, have these, larger bandwidth, have a larger bandwidth available to people because they want to push more content down that pipeline, right? And you
Yeah.
can't do it unless the plumbing's there, right?
Well, true that. Either that or, you make what's getting pumped through more efficient. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's not necessarily a bad idea. I mean, just because we're going to be getting fiber in places, we don't need it to end up like it was when quote unquote high speed, the original DSL, the original cable was being rolled out, and there were, huge swaths of the US and Europe where the best you were going to get is 56K, unless you're in like a big city, and that's kind of how it's turning out here with the fiber and the gigabit internet. And that's something we
Well,
should be more mindful of that.
we turned it around with the 4G thing because when I started doing mobile development, it was like Europe was where it was at. We barely had 2G here in the U.S., and I think they were talking like 1.75. So it was really primitive stuff, but somehow we've kind of leapt past that now, and so they've done I think a pretty good job nationwide of getting us at least some high speed mobile networks that
That's surprisingly fast, as a matter of fact, of late.
Well, I lived in Kansas City when Google did the fiber thing down
Oh
there,
yeah.
and seeing all the work they had to do for that, man, it's a lot of working in the dirt. I mean,
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's the same as laying a power line, basically.
yeah, super cool stuff though, man. Once you start getting those kinds of speeds, it really just like man, it just totally changes your consumption habits. I kind of miss it now, and it kind of requires different content.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean the things you can do with that, it changes the nature of your involvement with the internet. The internet's more of like it's just there on your computer, as opposed to you're connecting to something somewhere else.
Yeah, right. And all this wait time associated with it. So it's neat stuff. But yeah, optimization will never go away. I mean, as we kind of get these bigger bandwidth pipelines, people are always again trying to create more content, higher resolution content to put through them. So
Yeah. Well, just look at how big a 4K movie is as opposed to a 1080p movie. They're freaking giant.
but there you go. So like I can do 4K on my phone, which is pretty weird.
Yeah. Right.
But my laptop, oh my god, does it kill it? I mean, I can do 1080p on this thing, but I start trying to do 4K on it. So
Yeah.
it's crazy stuff. But this thing doesn't seem to have a problem with it.
Yeah. Who knows? Well, yeah. That little majigger right there, could have run the whole Apollo program from the part that landed on the moon to the part here on the planet side.
Yeah, right.
Not to mention something like Kerbal Space Program, which essentially is the whole thing, counting the rotation of the Earth and everything in the solar system, for that matter.
It's crazy stuff, and that's I guess back to the optimization thing. I mean, that's kind of my pet peeve. Sometimes it's like, well, why on this machine that is the most powerful machine I've ever had does Photoshop sometimes have troubles?
Yeah.
You know, couldn't you guys? I mean, you have been working on this. I don't know what 20 years. Do you really? So instead of optimizing it and having it fixed for the next platform so that it runs really well, they just keep adding all this bloat on top of it, and it ends up taxing your system. And it's like I'm not sure if I saw any progress here. This is actually running slower than it did, in previous systems. So
Yeah, that seems to be a big issue with apps these days. I mean, games are starting to get back into the optimization thing, and now you're getting a lot of bloatware in applications. Your browsers. Skype's still pretty okay, but I mean, they're starting to throw the ads and stuff on there that are a little annoying. So what's it going to be, right?
yeah, well, everyone wants an ecosystem, right?
Mm.
Like Facebook has right now. Own your phone, kind of. Well, don't you need the Messenger? Don't you need the Facebook app? Don't you want to be on Tinder? Have you, Instagram? All this. So you get this little, this kind of ecosystem where people think they're moving to other products and other services, but they're actually still locked within the same bubble.
Yeah. And within said bubble, every move you make's being watched, recorded, so that you can be properly marketed to in the future.
Targeted. Yep.
Oh yeah. And then of course, you got your Prism type deals that are keeping track of that, putting it in the big old place in Utah.
Yep.
Yeah, we live in.
I mean, sometimes I kind of raise my protest polls about it, but I just part of me says it's between age and just how messed our system is, like really being able to do too much about it. It's every time I upload a picture on the internet, something's gonna glean it for biometrics. Like, that's creepy as junk.
Yeah, completely. It's creepy's the word. It is. It absolutely is. So without naming names, what's your best game dev story?
Best game dev story. Poop.
Best can be horrible too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've got so many. I don't know. My best game dev story. I don't know. I guess nothing tooting my horn. So let's try to think of something.
You could be like the time you flew in like Superman and blocked the bullets for everybody and released the awesome thing. Whatever.
Right. Gosh, I can't think of anything offhand. I mean, I've got so many. So let's see a topic. So let's see something more fun, like when I was younger and just getting into the industry. I don't know. Here we go. This is something I thought was weird. I remember when this was like I think the last time GDC was in the San Jose, or I guess the San Jose Convention Center.
All right.
10 years ago. And I went to this Alias party, and this is back when Alias was still a thing.
Right.
And I thought it was so cool, dude. There were like chicks everywhere, and like all these women acted like they were interested in me. And at one point, I was like, "What is happening? This is weird." Like, and anyway, at one point, I turned to them and said, "Oh my God, you guys all work here, don't you?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're hired." Yeah.
Oh man, good times.
It's such a sausage fest. They had to go hire like intelligent, attractive women to pretend they liked us.
Business.
But for a second there, I was dancing with two pretty ladies, and I thought, man, this is cool. I mean, after they told me, it didn't change much, but just kind of put things in perspective.
Yeah, well, still, yeah, you got to enjoy it while you're there, but it does.
Well, it can get pretty bizarre in our industry, man. I mean, some of the parties I've been to can get pretty bizarre.
Oh, I would imagine. I've heard some stories, especially.
Here we go on that line.
Yeah.
I guess you can be colorful on your channel. This is not something I ever experienced, but when I lived up in Canada and worked at a place called Relic Entertainment, there was actually, I think this was prior to its acquisition, a place called Black Box. And I don't think EA had quite bought yet. And they would have, what did they call them? Beer Fridays or something, like Keg Fridays? I don't remember.
All right.
But basically invite whoever, you kind of had to know someone to get in there, but you get up to the rooftop and get to drink beer. And I was always told legends of basically the guy that ran that place would hire escorts, very similar to what I just described with the Alias party.
Yeah.
Show up at the company parties. Not tell anybody they were escorts.
Oh, man.
Naturally someone would go home with an escort and come back to the office telling legends of what happened at the company party.
Oh, man. Well, hey, it's good for morale, right?
Yeah, I guess it's good for morale. I don't know. I'd be creeped out if I found that out. I was like, I thought you really liked me.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's
You're getting paid.
What is it they say? Just again, don't look behind the mirror here. No, there's nothing back here. That curtain, that's nothing. There's nothing back here. That's magic.
So,
it's all magic.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Those are probably good stories. I think I was just gonna start complaining. What I always find interesting when you start interfacing, like I've worked with some big name Hollywood talent on like this game I made. I wrote Fear 3,
Okay, yeah.
and which is it was a fun franchise to work in. But you run up against these big names, and they always, despite not having worked in your industry, like to think they can dictate like what games are, and like your expertise doesn't mean much to them, and crappy games get released, and people
Yeah.
wonder why.
There's a lot of complaints about top-down problems. I know that's a real common occurrence in the field of game dev.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's, I don't, I think it's kind of typical Hollywood stuff, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty messed up these days. I mean, if you look at like what's going on in VFX, like a lot of those guys get screwed. I have some buddies that are really talented at VFX and they can't do it anymore. They said,
Oh yeah, the industry's just been gutted. It really has. Like the big visual effects houses, they're nothing like what they once were.
no, and and people in game dev get treated pretty similarly. Work to the bone, not a lot of respect for their work, zero ownership of it, and at the end of the day, most likely are left over to get laid off, whether it's through a series of layoffs or when the studio closes.
Yeah, yeah, and then you've got these insolvent studios that can't give you the unemployment you're due, or whatever say you were supposed to get from on the back end.
Right. Well, and then there's the other side of it too. I mean, I know some people that have worked in the industry for a long time, and they've like released two games. So some studios who I kind of like, so I'm not going to mention too many names about them, but like if a game takes you 7 years to make, something is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at what happened to Duke.
Right.
And we can always fall back to what happened to Duke. And then when it did come out, it was very
That's so strange. That just gave me the wicked Serious Sam craving.
They released a new one of those recently, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did. I never really played it. For me, the best Serious Sam was actually a GBA build. So cool.
Oh, really?
It's like, it's like super reduced. Doom on the GBA was pretty cool too. But back when I worked at Warner Brothers, one of my jobs was to organize the game library. So I got to play a lot of games.
Oh, that's cool.
That was
I imagine that's got to be quite the sight to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember over at EALA when I worked there was a guy that was like his like full-time job. He just managed their library, and when he wanted games, he'd just go check them out. And,
Oh, nice. Game librarian.
yeah,
That's a
well,
pretty
it's
sweet
necessary.
gig.
You gotta do research. I
Yeah.
mean, and last time I interviewed up at Microsoft, I think it was like narrative director on the Gears of War franchise or something like that. Black Tusk. I think I spent like $700 researching product.
Yeesh.
Yeah, because I said, man, this could be my big gig, man. I need to go
Oh
out
yeah,
and
no. I mean, if you're
stuff,
yeah, no, you want to knock it out of the park if you're going to be interviewing with somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, fail.
Yeah, but you got you got your own thing, and there is really something to be said for putting out your own product that you've put your own blood, sweat, and tears into.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's sort of the greatest thing I've ever done. I mean, because it's like a labor of love. Like I didn't really make any money doing it. I still don't really make much any money doing it. But it's something I really enjoy, and I've somehow managed to kind of keep going this long. I just like, and it's totally straight from my heart and soul. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me. There's so many egos, and that's one thing. You always got to navigate those. But there's a lot of cooks, in the kitchen when you're making a game, and a lot of creative decisions might not sound the best sometimes.
Yeah.
Until you kind of try them and give them some love and iterate on them and test them. That's a luxury you don't necessarily have unless you're going to put in extra hours, which is hard when you're already working 60 hours a week to prove it. But if you're doing it on your own, you can really kind of test it out and see an idea through.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost as much, and that's sort of why I did this. I was a professor teaching game design at the Kansas City Art Institute. And, I'd been working in education. I got married, and I thought, man, games isn't too stable. I'll just kind of try to consult and be a professor.
Sure.
But I got to this point where I was getting treated kind of junky by my employer, and then there's these like weirdo students that I don't know. I don't necessarily do very well with.
Right, right.
Like, look, dude, I don't get paid enough to deal with this.
Understandable. Understandable. Students are real weird these days.
I hate to say the millennial thing, because every now and then someone will try to call me one. And number one, I'm not one. And number two, there isn't really such a thing. But there's a lot of people out there that don't like getting told. I mean, this one kid was bringing like Soul Calibur screenshots to class and trying to tell me he made them. And like,
I've met the type.
We had to and he was like laid this big brick like, I'm gonna get you fired, and like all this crap. Had to go have meetings with this person, that person. Eventually his parents came in here, and I'm like, this is the game, this is what your son is putting up.
Yeah.
So anyway, that stuff aside, there are these, I have some of these students who are just freaking amazing people.
Yeah.
Really talented, and that's why I teach. Like, I love bringing those people into the fold and giving them the knowledge I have so they can go out and do it. So here I was telling them they didn't need to go work at Nintendo. They didn't need the Microsoft job, right? They didn't need to wait for permission from someone else to go and do what they know they can do and what they love.
Yeah.
And you can go straight to market. So here
Absolutely.
I am telling these people to do it, and I'm kind of not doing it. I kind of dabbled in it. But so the opportunity came, and I resigned and said, okay, I'm going at this. And the first time it didn't work. I had to start up with these other guys, and they were in it for the wrong reasons, like chicks and stuff. It was weird. So I said, guys, no, this is not what I'm about at all. Like, I really am trying to make products that change the world. And I had to do it by myself, and that's how I got
Pinky. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And if you're gonna do it for the sake of the art, then you got to be an artist. You can't go in being greedy or vain. Yeah, and it's we live in a time where we're lucky that I can do this, right?
Yeah. In the past, a mentor, associate, whatever I should call him, Chris Crawford, or some of these other fellas I know, Bob Bates. Back in the day, in the late 70s and 80s, when they were doing this, they made a game. Like, they were, whatever the product was that they were working on. Like, they were behind the kind of whole thing, and they saw it through. And so it wasn't art. It was like this labor of love. And when you kind of dissect it, and everyone has their own little piece, and no one's really in control, naturally it doesn't work quite the same way. So, I like to think I can scale this up, but even if I kind of just remained kind of indie weirdo guy kind of making this in his backyard for the rest of my life, at least, I'm doing something that I love, and it comes from that same place. Same place as a kid brings you to love these experiences, that same kind of joy and wonder. And when it turns into, labor, you kind of lose that.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of looking at things. Really healthy, I'd say.
Thanks.
And hopefully it'll, allow you to iterate on your productions as opposed to, just toss things and start over fresh with a new square wheel because the round one doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, it's, part of the fun. I still own all of this stuff. It's like mine. I can use it however I see fit. Whereas, some of these other characters I've made or, mechanics I've designed, or I got nothing for it. And to the point where, like, I find it strange. Sometimes I'll be, I've kind of stopped doing it. But, when I was trying to get back into the kind of industry, and I'd go and interview for these spots, and people would be acting like, oh, really? Did you really do that? I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have to fight like this. It's like, this is just weird. Like, I work in the industry. I've gotten awards. Here's my credits. Like I don't know. It's a very, very peculiar to me.
Yeah, no, I suppose I can understand. I mean, any kind of industry like that's going to be a little cliquish, and then
it's super cliquish, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and then you involve, people like the journalism front where, yeah, that's a
well,
that's a can of worms.
And it's so popular right now, and there's so much romanticism with it. You can get kids to kind of do whatever you want for next to nothing as long as you tell them they're working on a game with you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, has some benefits to it. I like to think that it's we're in a time of change right now, and who knows, maybe that change is just constant. But I like to think we're moving to a place where independents like you and I can kind of keep doing the stuff that we have fun and get enjoyment and give other people enjoyment with,
Sure.
but are able to kind of have a decent living, or at least start to build a living out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you want to make the things that your audience is going to like, and you want to make things that people are going to like in general. So, one tries. That's about all you can do, right? All right, well, so that we don't keep this too long, why don't I give you a couple minutes to shill anything you'd like to, and then I'll play some of the stuff from the album you sent me here.
All right, yeah, cool. So yeah, I guess I should talk about that. So one of the cool things that's happened as a result of the process we just talked about is I went and raised some money. No, not too much, but a little bit, so I could buy some new tools for myself. And over the past year, I mean, it's really been a few years, but the past year since this successful Kickstarter campaign, I'm able to kind of focus on my skills and get these tools that I had kind of lost along the way to getting where I was professionally. So I started making music again. And I've made music for years, but really haven't produced anything new for, I don't know, probably 7 to 10 years. And
Right.
but I was able to go out and get a new setup with some of the monies I received from Kickstarter and my backers. And over the course of the past year, I mean, I don't even count. I don't know, probably at least 20 tracks I've cut, probably more, 3 to 5 albums. And I don't know, I love it. I grew up loving sound. I mean, I studied it for a while. So it's something I'm super passionate about. So let's see. So like the first album you became familiar with was really kind of my wading into the waters of music development again and composition, and use that as music for Pinky.
Yeah.
And kind of went on from there. And my latest project is called Ultra Pickles, and Professor Prism as a character, I'd like to develop it more. Sometimes I embody it, but certainly in the course of the Kickstarter campaign and a little bit of this right now, as a role that I play. But in that context, I call myself Gross Beats. 104 BPM. It's a project that I started in February of this year. And
I featured some of your stuff on my show, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And so Ultra Pickles kind of is an evolution out of that stuff.
And speaking of, I'll go ahead and let a little bit of that play in the background so that people can get an idea of what we're talking about here.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I could. This it's a video album too, so you can actually watch this. I guess I could run some on. So I like to think if you're familiar with the length of turntables and some of what I'm doing in the context sounds slightly familiar to you, although none of it's done with turntables. It's all produced electronically, a combination of audio and sequencing.
Yeah. So we got really, well, like I said before, very experimental.
Yeah, well, so for me, that kind of sound, I've always been into kind of edgy experimental stuff, I guess, but gosh, I'm trying to think of when I first ran into it. I can't think of it right now. It really probably was when I started doing work for Bomb Hip Hop, this record label out of San Francisco. I don't know, call those years, in the early 2000s, when I started doing a lot of graphic and identity work. And David Paul, who runs this, was sending me a lot of this material he was working on, and it just like blew my mind. Return of the DJ was a series that brought turntablism.
Oh yeah. Turntable TV even would have been on in that era, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Yeah, really neat stuff. A lot of people just hear it as noise, but it's a language that I started to become familiar with. So between that and kind of growing up in the techno scene in Chicago and Detroit, they've just been heavily influential on me. So that's the sound I try to achieve with Ultra Pickles.
Yeah, and as I had told you before, it's like when you go into something like Drux from Aphex Twin, it's so experimental, it's hardly even music anymore.
Yeah.
But this is still music.
Oh, well, thanks.
It's obviously experimental. It's out there and it's wild, but, if one was so inclined, one could dance to this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can dance to it.
Yeah. It's going to be a little herky-jerky, a little industrial, but,
Yeah, I like to think, it facilitates interpretive dance.
Yeah, well, hey, Well, all dance is interpretive if you think about it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. What can I say? I was a little traditionally trained. I was a kid that didn't want to take wrestling. And I was like, can I just go dance? There's a bunch of girls over there and they're all dancing and I don't have to rub those guys. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, right? So that's a double win, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, interpretive dance. So just kind of, jazz, like taking it in and moving with it. And I don't know. Kids these days dance to some weird stuff, man. So
true that.
So I like to think I'd be able to do it. Like I'm trying to think. No, I still have yet to perform this stuff live, even at an open mic with Ultra Pickles. But the idea is it's actually kind of like this audio cinema experience. So I'm actually can like remix what I call cinema, this video work I've done in real time with the audio. To create a dynamic mix in front of an audience.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that. It sounds kind of cool, actually, especially seeing the artwork that you've put together. It's got a really interesting style. Like I would say, visually arresting.
Oh well, thanks so much. You should.
Sure.
It's been really popular on Instagram. If you get a chance, go check it out. It's just /gross beats.
Oh yeah. Before we close up here, let's. You got some links like SoundCloud or whatever. I'll throw some stuff in the bottom, obviously, for everybody watching. But for the people that are going to download the audio of this later, tell them where to find you, what they need to know.
144bpm.club, 144bpm.club, or ultrapickles.com for music. 144bpm at Bandcamp. Facebook /144bpm, SoundCloud /144bpm, kind of on a lot of places. You can go watch it. This is what I'd actually rather people do because I work really hard on making these videos that you can watch of it. If you go to the YouTube channel, which is just YouTube /144bpm club, and I wish that was a smaller URL, but that was the closest I could get. So youtube.com /144bpm. See, I messed it up. BPM Club, 144 BPM Club. So if you just go over to Twitter, which is Twitter 144 BPM, you can find links to it there. It's all over the place. I'm on Vine. I don't know too much.
All right, cool. And yeah, I'll make sure and just DM me a couple of links and I'll make sure and put them in the description of the video here so that anybody can check everything out a little easier too.
Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I sent you at least a link to the Ultra Pickles playlist.
Yeah.
And those mixes are slightly different than the mixes I have at ultrapickles.com, which are kind of more solid final mixes.
Yeah.
And the video, a lot of them are earlier mixes.
Right. And of course, I'll include the link to the 4 Colorverse videos here you got as well for the Pinky Elefante.
Cool. Yeah, in terms of Pinky Elefante, pinkyelefante.com is kind of a stupid, simple website there, but it provides links to iOS, Android, and Amazon. There is also a free version that you can play for free and download for free. It's only the first 4 zones, and that's currently only available on Google, but will be coming to iOS soon.
All right, right on. Well, sir, it has been a complete pleasure. I'll go ahead and fade out the music, all fancy schmancy. Woo. Alrighty. And, if you got any other new stuff coming out in the future, you're more than welcome to come on. Music, games, hell, if you draw yourself a comic book, let us know.
Cool, we'll do, man.
All right, well, it has been a pleasure. This is Evan, and this has been the Professor Steven /